Good evening and welcome to the coffee table. So we thought today we'll go beyond. We've been talking a lot about economics and we've been talking about the woes that we have and where we need to go, what we need to do. So today we're going to look at a totally different area, and that area is security and foreign policy. So because the two do intersect, and there's a lot of discussion going on at the moment on various things that are happening in the region, which are happening internationally also. So we have with us Syed Ali Jaffery. Syed Ali Jaffery is the associate editor of a magazine called Pakistan Politico, except it's not about politics. It's about a lot wider in terms of its remit. And Ali, tell us about your magazine first. I believe the first edition came out in April 2018?
May 2018.
May 2018. So what is this magazine all about?
Thank you, first of all, for calling me to this good show that I've been watching since the past 1 month or so.
Oh, you have been watching?
Yeah, I watched your show with on the economy and security with Hussain Nadeem and sir.
Yeah.
So that was one of your best shows, I would say.
Thank you.
So yeah, this magazine comes from a from a missing link. So the executive editor of the magazine happens to be Mr. Awais Rauf. While he was studying in the United Kingdom, he said that I want Pakistan to produce a magazine right up to the quality of Times or The Economist and other magazines where our voice can go out. There's a lot of distorted narratives going around about Pakistan, and a lot of things have been.
So who distorts it? We distort it ourselves, or it is being
Everyone.
distorted
I
from
think
outside?
this calls for a greater debate, and I am ready to talk about it in
I
detail.
am ready also.
Yep.
We know some of our friends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about it just in a couple of minutes. Before I first let me just go through over this magazine's vision. So that was the basic vision. So the idea for us is that we are all too obsessed about foreign policy and strategic affairs, but unfortunately, more is written about Pakistan by non-Pakistan. A lot of things that affect.
Are we talking about Cynthia tweeting or?
Everything. Let me talk about my subject in particular. I can just count books on my fingers that have been written on Pakistan's nuclear weapons program and other associated elements. All of the things that are written in the US particularly. So our idea was to have a conduit where our researchers, our young academics and accomplished academics, along with people who have seen it all and done it all, from both within Pakistan and outside, can write in a very credible manner and in a very good platform, under a very good platform they can write. This was the entire vision, and we started off with this magazine in May. We are almost about to launch our 9th edition. So we have people from the DC community writing for this magazine. We have young Pakistani scholars, including myself, writing on various issues.
So what's your background?
Okay. So I work on nuclear issues, nuclear deterrence, and I write for various national and international platforms. And I plan to develop my studies further in this area because I've always found this fascinating, given that I had a proclivity towards joining the forces because I have a forces background.
Right.
Unfortunately, due to my hand disability, I could not join the army. So I thought that I could academically study war and the theories of war, and by virtue of those, I then delved into the concept of nuclear
But Ali, then why did you choose this format? From what you say, you want to bring out research or thoughts for Pakistani thinkers, and you want to compete with the international market in terms of thinking about Pakistan. Why adopt the magazine framework? Should it not be then a journal of research or something?
That is an entirely different thing, and that we also intend on doing, but that is quite academic. These kinds of works need to be disseminated quickly. They, journal writing takes time. I'm not talking about journals produced by Pakistani universities. I'm a bit too critical about them. They churn
Even though
out
you sit in a
journals after
university,
journals. They churn out journals after journals, and they don't produce research. They just paraphrase, and it's almost akin
Rigor
to
of
plagiarism.
research.
When I see this in the shop, for example, I think it's a magazine. I won't think it's a research because there are two different streams.
But
One is, as you said, Time is a magazine.
It is not a news magazine.
Okay.
We were striving to have a magazine of the quality of Times, but focused on a niche audience. So our focus is on a very exclusive set of people. We focus on the strategic community. We focus on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the SPD,
Faisal,
GHQ.
when I look at the newspapers every morning, in 1992, I thought I'd do something. There was no television. I always wanted to find out what my Pakistani thinkers were thinking.
Right.
So in 1992, I did a paper taking hold of newspapers and actually measuring the content of newspapers.
Right.
Actually measured the content of content
On
of
what subjects they were
newspapers,
writing,
what subject they were covering, the front page, the editorial page, and this page, that page, etc. I did it for 1 year, thought it out, got the data, published it in many places. What I found then, and which is true today, is that we are obsessed with foreign policy. If you look at the newspapers today, I count these almost every morning. When I look at the newspapers, I look at the op-ed pages, and the op-ed pages, the majority of the articles are on foreign policy.
Right.
Written by ex-ambassadors, various people. They're writing all the time. And I submit that we are a country obsessed with foreign policy. Would you agree with that, Ali? Huh?
Yes, I would, but there are reasons for
You
that.
made it too easy for him.
There are reasons for it.
Go ahead, you can argue later.
There are many reasons for it.
Okay.
We, when we came into being in 1947, we had a host of problems which emanated from our eastern neighbor. And
Why are we saying Eastern neighbor? India.
India, of course. I am very blunt about India, but let's be.
You're being diplomatic.
So we
and saying
had,
Eastern neighbor.
so we had the eastern neighbor
Right.
that cajoled the western neighbor to turn against us. It is a fact that people don't
Is
understand.
that a fact? Is that what we want to believe?
No.
Right,
Why shouldn't we believe
Now, I can understand the eastern neighbor, India. Which is the western neighbor?
Afghanistan?
Afghanistan. Oh, that's northern.
Afghanistan.
Okay, fair enough.
So we have been.
Let me take you a little
afflicted,
back
yeah.
into history. Then he's then going to say, "Oh, you've been reading the Indus saga."
Okay.
Afghanistan, right, always laid claim, right, to a large part of what is Pakistan today.
Yeah.
Right, the frontier.
Yeah.
Right, the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region, right up to Punjab, right, right up to the Satluj, in fact. Right, Afghanistan for over centuries laid claim to it.
Absolutely.
Then we come into existence in 1947, and the Durand Line is drawn also.
Yeah.
So what has happened as a consequence is the Durand Line was not acceptable.
It
Right?
was
So that is a bone of contention.
Yeah, that was. But
Right,
that
so-
was, festered by a lot of.
It may have festered over the years, but we're talking right at the inception. We're talking 1947. Right? What happened in 1947? Afghanistan refused to recognize Pakistan. Right? Why did they refuse to recognize Pakistan? There's got to be have been a reason.
Can I
There's
bring
got to
in
be
my little economist
Yeah,
edge?
yeah.
I
Not economy today.
No, I won't discuss it, but all I'm saying is, for God's sakes, as my former professor, the Nobel Prize winner, told me once after I read all the economics, he said, all this doesn't matter. Go ask the local taxi driver, the local shopkeeper, he doesn't care two hoots about
No,
these
he
things.
does. If he's in Peshawar, if he's in Vana, if he's in Miranshah, he cares.
Cares
He
about
cares. He cares.
That we have a foreign policy?
No, what that foreign
He
policy.
cares about his natural
how that
linkages.
foreign policy impacts his life. How that movement to Afghanistan and movement back impacts his life. The ease of movement, how does that impact his
I
life?
think there's people like you who like to put that spin on it.
No, I don't.
When I talk to those guys,
Yeah.
they don't care two hoots about any of these things. I think.
No, in
why are
terms
we-
of the- in
Just
terms
tell
of
me,
the-
why are we obsessed with foreign policy?
Yes.
You, Ali, why are we
So,
obsessed
yeah,
with foreign
so
policy?
I was coming to that.
Yeah, we interrupted you
So,
very
yeah.
rudely.
So we had, I think, needless to say, we had many issues with India.
Everybody does. Who doesn't?
And Afghanistan.
Trump wants to build a wall in Mexico.
Yeah. So we were always, since the very beginning, we were under the impression that we are going to be invaded by India or by other elements inside and outside the country. Then eventually we went.
So who's taken a more aggressive stance, us or India?
Let me get into that. So then we had the 65 war. I don't want to go into the reasons because a lot has
No,
been
we
written
need to
about.
go into the reasons when we are talking about neighbors, right? We need to go maybe a little 10
Okay,
years
the 65 war.
backwards.
Let's now open it up.
Yeah, let's open
Let's
it up.
open it up. The 65 war. Pakistan and India have been afflicted with what everyone calls the action-reaction syndrome.
Yes.
Be it in the strategic domain or the conventional domain.
Yeah.
The problem with our intelligentsia and what I call a certain clique of people nowadays is that we expect all other states to be ruthless, to be pandering to a realist school of thought. But when it comes to us, our intelligentsia expects Pakistan
be pacifist,
very
to be
passive,
peaceful.
to be very on the idealistic side. This cannot happen.
Of course it can't happen.
So if one country,
yeah.
for whatever reason, right or wrong, is trying to impose its will on you, you cannot, history tells that you cannot stay quiet. You'll respond.
Of course you'll
in
respond.
many different ways.
But Ali, that's,
So the
I think,
65 war.
I think what we're getting into is security policy, which is different from foreign policy, as you pointed out to me yourself before the show. The point is very simple. Yes, every country has security threats. We all have security threats, right? All the US neighbors have been invaded by the US and they all have security threats, right? And all of the world, Europe has gone through 2 world wars, they have a security threat, fair enough. They've taken decisions on how to do security. Europe has relied on NATO and they've taken a decision. They've disarmed, but they're relying on NATO, right? There are many responses, and I'm happy to discuss those responses with you. And yes, we've taken responses. We've got a nice-sized army, we've got a nuclear bomb, and fair enough, we've got a security situation, kind of sort of. Why are we obsessed with foreign policy? And what can foreign policy do for us?
We are obsessed with foreign. One thing is important to understand. I'm a very positive and a very optimistic person.
Happy to hear that.
I feel that by the decade, Pakistan is improving. And I have a reason to say this. We were born without even proper offices, without a capital, literally.
We know all that. We know all
Fine.
that.
So eventually we have, overcome most of our major security threats. As you pointed out, that we won't have a war with India, a major war. We have a
got a nuclear bomb.
reasonably
We're well
sized
protected.
army. We have a very good nuclear
have the
program.
complete nuclear triad
we
now,
have, alhamdulillah. Now then we had some political problems, like we had a lot of martial laws. Then we had the army playing from behind the curtains. Now things are moving. Regardless of whatever these conspiracy theorists tell you, democracy is continuing in Pakistan. It has been continuing since the past decade and a half.
You're getting into a difficult area there.
So let's see. We have the problem of extremism that, inshallah, I'm hopeful that within the next decade or so, that would.
Okay, Ali, let me
recede
ask you a slightly different
in a
question.
way.
Can you describe to me, and Faisal, this is for you too.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what our foreign policy is today? And let's not have a long, let's just give me 3 bullet points. What is our foreign policy today? 3 bullet points.
Yeah. Our foreign policy, number one, the principal concern for our foreign policy is focusing on the security side of it. We want a peaceful, we want peaceful borders where India would not entertain thoughts of imposing its regional hegemony on Pakistan through the use of force or any other violent means.
Okay.
Number one.
Number one.
Attached to it, 1B is that we need to have an Afghanistan that is not hostile to us, that is not a breeding ground for inimical forces.
So we want a peaceful India, peaceful Afghanistan.
Yeah.
What about us and Iran?
No, let's get him to point 2, point 3.
Yeah.
Let's have 3 bullet points. Simple.
Then we, as new elements come into play and with the advent of the new government, I foresee a sea change that is creeping in. Our foreign policy now is having, or at least it's trying to devise an all-departmental approach. It is now focusing on what you say, the importance of the economy, investment. Military power is rudderless if you don't have an economy.
So that's the second
So
point.
the
Third point?
economic power feeds into military power.
Third point.
Third point is we need to have a place where we as a country have a greater clout in the community of nations. Because of the distorted narrative, Pakistan has not harnessed its actual potential. It can play a greater role
Okay.
in
So
world
let's
politics.
summarize. You're saying, one, we need peace with our neighbors,
Yeah.
right? But we want more than peace. We want, in a sense, for them to think differently for us.
Exactly.
I would argue, Faisal, and you please come in here, it is not my job to tell you how to think about me.
Absolutely.
I can work with you, I can be nice to you and influence you that way, right?
Yeah.
Secondly, in terms of economic diplomacy, I think economics is different from diplomacy. No diplomacy can do anything. If we don't produce anything, what are we going to sell to the world? Thirdly, your point about having a cloud. Why do we want a cloud?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why do I
And
want
with
a
whom?
cloud?
With whom? We don't want anybody else's hegemony. Why do we want to be hegemonistic?
No.
Clout normally translates into hegemonistic.
Clout.
We're going to come back to this because I've been asked to take a break. So when we come back from the break, we're going to pick it up on this, right? About our desire to have more clout. So we're going to take a short break and we're going to come back. I trust you're enjoying this so far. Stay with us as we talk about Pakistan and its neighbors and where we want to see Pakistan in the future. Welcome back from the break. Before we went away, we were talking to Ali about, he had tabled 3 points, right, regarding Pakistan's foreign policy. Dr. Nadeem had said, so what exactly is Pakistan's foreign policy? And Ali had tabled 3 points. So we were talking about that. One of those was that Pakistan needs more clout in the community of nations. We need to look at our whole security perspectives, right? We want peace on our eastern border. We want more settled Afghanistan. So we have peace on our western border also. We always tend to forget Iran. We don't talk about it. Are we hostile towards Iran? Because Iran is not hostile towards us.
I think we're not. Okay. So you want me to talk about Iran?
Yeah.
I think Iran, in my view, in the days to come, would become one of the most important countries for Pakistan. And engaging with it is a must. Because, we are living in a time where it's about pipelines and corridors. And Iran occupies a very important...
So energy corridors.
Yeah, energy corridors, transportation corridors, trade corridors. And let's talk about Iran and how they perceive international relations.
Yeah.
There was a lot of hue and cry when the Chahbar port was handed over to India in 2017.
$400 million was it?
So so I wrote an article in a very obscure place, and I said that Gwadar does not rival Chahbar. There was a lot of wrist slitting by the usual suspects that you look, India has ingressed into Iran, it will just hurt us and this will fight us. You need to understand what Iran thinks regarding international relations. It has a very independent foreign policy. It gives more importance to its national interest than anything. People who ascribe Iran with the Shia factor are ignoring the fact that Iran even talks to people who kill Shias in order to fulfill its national interests. Taliban, they're talking to the Taliban. They hosted the Taliban a week ago. So this happened. So
isn't it necessary for them to talk to Taliban?
Oh yeah,
because
of course.
It's necessary for the entire region.
It is necessary.
For Afghanistan's...
But I'm just trying to point out that they think on their feet and they understand the nuances of international relations.
But which country doesn't talk to another country? Right now, we have, how many embassies do we have in the world?
I think about 80, 90.
Right? So we obviously, our embassies are there to talk to those people, right? How many diplomatic missions does our Prime Minister go to every year? Nawaz Sharif used to go almost every month, right? We have so many visits here all the time. Every time I turn around, newspapers as headline. So I submit to you that every country talks to every country. And yes, only question is, when we talk to them, what do we say? Do we make the right noises? And more importantly, before we talk to them, what kind of homework do we do? And I think that's where we fail. We have no homework, and yet we keep writing foreign policy and thinking foreign. And I'm totally up here with this foreign policy.
Because there is one reason for it. We think in terms of tactics. Okay, what will happen tomorrow? Okay, we'll see when the other day comes, we'll talk about it. We do not think beyond the next day. This is our problem. The issue is that focusing on tactics and not looking at the bigger picture is one of our biggest weaknesses. Now, coming back to Iran, I would just like to complete my point regarding Iran, is that we need to understand one important thing. States do not pander to the either or approach.
Right.
There is no way that we should expect Russia not to talk to India because they're talking to us.
Yeah.
This is absolutely
Doesn't happen.
This doesn't happen.
Sure.
It's a no-brainer. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
We need to learn the fact that states talk and fight with each other.
Yeah.
There was a lot of disappointment and despondency when China asked us to name some terrorist groups that are allegedly based in Pakistan in the Zion Declaration in the BRICS summit that happened in 2017, and we were like, "What the hell has that happened? Deeper than the oceans and higher than the Himalayas
and all that.
These emotions have no place in international relations or real politics.
They don't.
Sorry.
Agreed.
Iran, China, Russia, any other country for that matter, panders to its own national
Obviously.
interests.
Always.
And we need to realize this.
Okay, let me ask you another question.
This reminds me of a game.
Yeah.
Did you ever play that game?
Risk?
Diplomacy?
No, I haven't played diplomacy. I played risk.
Diplomacy is
I was
better
very
than-
hegemonistic.
Diplomacy is very much better than risk. You have to play diplomacy.
Okay.
Risk is a cheaper version.
Yeah.
Diplomacy is where you have countries and you have councils and you have to actually make acts and deal. I think this is the way we think of foreign policy. Iran, India, China, here, there, etc. The point is very simple. Take Israel. Israel is a very clear foreign policy, right? How does it enforce it? Very clear how it enforces it, if you think about it. Israel's foreign policy is very simple, that it is going to survive and is going to take over the Middle East, period. And how they're doing it is to control the US. How do they control the US?
They control it through economics. They
And he
control
makes
it
the
through...
mayor
No, much more important.
Yeah.
They control it through thought.
Through thought
They
process.
control the
Yeah.
universities and,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
I
media
agree, I
and
agree.
your area, the
Yeah,
media.
yeah,
All
media,
the media is controlled by the
So-
Israelis, right? So they have worked it out. It's not about force or whatever. Yes, they have the force too. Now, my issue is here that we think of diplomacy as being
Well, I think
game of risk.
he's used the word either or. He's absolutely right. We think in terms of either or. Either you're with us or you're against us.
The point is there's a dialogue.
We call it zero-sum mentality.
Yeah, zero-sum
States
mentality.
do not or
But
should
then
not
tell
pander
us,
to
what
zero-sum
should we do?
mentality.
What should we do? So you've given us 3 points in our foreign policy. Now, what should be our foreign policy? Give us those 3 points.
I must appreciate the government of Pakistan for playing this Kartarpur Gambit. It's very good. Initiatives like
When you use
these.
the word play, it kind of tends to trivialize it a bit.
For opening out the border,
It becomes like a pawn that you moved on a chessboard, and you're saying
But
we're going to play.
eventually it turns out to be one.
Right.
If you look at it in any other way. So it's a very good initiative. And it actually goes a long way in developing a big constituency of peace in India. And right now, given the election season that is rampant in India, it has actually put Delhi and Modi on the back foot.
Okay.
And it's a very good Imran 1, Modi 0. Good. But
Again, you're taking a zero-sum game.
no,
I would worry about
We're not going to
that.
let you get away with this one.
I would worry
It's
about
not
that.
zero.
Yeah.
We're not going to let you get away with this one.
no, it's not.
We may have tweaked his nose. We may have made it a little difficult. He may have had
I don't
to...
think it's either. I
Yeah,
think we should
yeah,
just
yeah,
simply
yeah,
take it to the friendly gesture that
That's
he
it.
made. And I
A
think
community-
very good. I'm very happy with it.
Yes.
The question is to make state relations deeper, we have to do many things, including, for example, soft power.
Yeah.
Include our movies, for example, are a great way. I have noticed, and you must have noticed this too, Bollywood stretches all the way to South America.
Of course it does.
And I think it does better diplomacy than in the
absolutely.
Indian
More
diplomacy.
than any,
Your books do a much better job. I mean, diplomacy has to be many different directions. It's relations. It's like my friendship with Faisal. It can't be just that we sit here. It has to be much deeper.
Perceptions,
You know,
Interstate relations are based on many elements, and one of them is, of course, academia through the use of soft image and also soft power. They are two different things.
Yeah.
So we need, but the problem now, then again, people from your community if we
What is
make
my community?
Yeah.
the media community,
media. Okay,
let's
media.
be very frank. I need
Yes,
to
let's
talk
talk
about
You
about
don't
it.
like the media? Okay.
Let's talk
No,
about
I
it.
need to talk about this.
Yes,
Please do.
we
Please
must.
do.
Firstly, the media needs to talk. First, they need to understand what foreign policy is.
Yes.
On every damn topic,
Oops.
you have 2-3 people talking about. A program would talk about S400, of which they have no idea.
Yeah.
They'll talk about Aryan, they
We've-
have no idea.
That we know, right?
Okay.
I'm one of the strongest kind
Critics.
of dissenters. I tweet and say
Yeah, I
they're
know.
everybody and anybody. So we agree
Yeah,
with that.
so one of the
I
issues-
just want to go back to a couple of things that we said earlier. So you said we want more clout
Yeah.
in the Committee of Nations. Right? Let me table another thing. Do you see any state-to-state conflict anywhere in the world right now?
Not per se.
There isn't.
In the classic.
Right? So there is a form of asymmetrical warfare,
Asymmetrical
or
warfare,
we calling it
indirect,
fourth generation, fifth generation, and all that. Which means that the dimensions are changing constantly. Right? So this apprehension, this fear, this security kind of scare, then saying, okay, somebody might move in, might occupy our land. That's not going to happen. So when we talk about Afghanistan, we need to rethink, reimagine. Strategic depth, right, is not territorial.
Exactly.
Strategic
It
depth,
never was.
It never was. It never should have been.
Never
Right. So we need to rethink that, and we need to say, okay, we want a peaceful Western border. We want a peaceful Afghanistan. Do we need to have influence in Afghanistan?
I would argue
Of
slightly
course,
differently.
of course.
Faisal. If I want to be somebody's friend,
Yeah.
first I have to look at myself. What do I offer?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
If I am, for example, not capable of holding a conversation with you,
Yeah.
if
We
I
can't
have
be
my
friends.
sights fixed, I'm going to steal from your pocket.
Yeah.
If I've got my sights fixed on, I'm going to be hegemonistic, I'm going to rule
Yeah.
Faisal.
Yeah, I'm going to influence
I'm
him.
going to try and take control of him. He's going to be my psychological puppet. How can I make friends with you? So we ourselves have to, and then if I have to have a good relationship with you, I must deepen the way we interact.
Absolutely.
Right? It has to be intellectual. We must laugh together. We must go out and party together. Everything, right?
everything.
Now, if we don't do that, how
to be
can we have an?
multi-fronted. You can't have one dimension to a policy with someone or with a state, for instance. But I would just like to get back to the strategic depth concept.
Sure.
Any relationship cannot survive if one person A does not have influence over person B. Otherwise, they would fight. If
No, but I will
you
fight if you try to influence me.
Why
I'll
can't
push
we
back.
have?
I
Ali,
want
why?
you
That's
to
it.
accept my viewpoint
But
as
the-
much as I
but the-
accept
but the
yours.
fact-
Ali, why can't we have reciprocal influence?
Yeah.
I influence you in some ways, you influence me in some ways,
Reciprocity,
right? I mean, nobody's free of influence. Faisal influences me in some ways. I influence him in some ways, right? It's not that one or the other. In fact, you are absolutely right. I wouldn't have any friendship with Faisal if he was not offering me anything and I wasn't offering him something, right? So we all offer each other things.
The world is very brutal. It's about give and take. Our clout would increase if we have much more to give than to take.
Yes.
But for having the ability,
Why think of it in terms of clout?
because
Why do
clout
I
is
want
because clout is
Why clout?
You call it your total power mix. You call it your entire spectrum of power.
Ali, let me put it slightly differently. All I want from you is respect, not clout, right? And all I want from you is respect, not of a certain kind, like we give respect to our Rajas and DMGs, etc., right? I want respect from you as an individual, but I can only get it if I give you the respect. If I mistreat you, you're not going to respect me, are you?
Who do we want to influence? Where do we want our cloud, right, to show its power, or like you said, the power mix? It's not going to happen with India, right? So that's out. It's not going to happen with China, so that's out. It's not going to happen with Iran, so that's out. So it leaves Afghanistan, right? Where do we want this cloud to manifest itself?
No, but the clout has to be seen vis-a-vis our objectives.
Yeah.
If we keep India at bay, if we achieve a semblance of parity with them in other domains other than security,
Yeah.
we can at least keep them away.
So that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Right? When we say keep them at bay, that means we need to have some identity, we need to have some influence, we need to have strength in ourselves, right, to be able to neutralize or combat
Exactly.
or keep them,
So we are using whatever
vested.
little clout we have to achieve our objective
The word
vis-a-vis
cloud
India.
gives me a problem. I've been asked to go to another break. So when we come back, we've got to talk about
Yeah, the
the
book
blind
as
eye that you've reviewed also.
Okay.
So we're talking about clout, right? So we've got to get to the bottom of this and say, who do we want to hit over the head? Or who do we want to influence? And in what manner do we want to influence? And what do we do with our strengths, right? We are a very large nation. We are 210 million people. We are a nuclear power. We are a recognized nuclear power, right? So all these are big positives, but there are, again, negatives. So we need to look at all those when we come back. Welcome back from the break. Before we went away, we were talking to Ali about Pakistan's foreign policy and how do we see ourselves going into the future. We know that we are in a restive region. We know there has been conflict going on our western border for a very long time. We know that we have contention with a very large neighbor on our eastern border. So, Ali, decipher clout for us, right? Like I said, it kind of sounds like we want to go and hit somebody. We want to go
It's
and
an
influence
old
somebody.
conqueror word. It's a conqueror word.
Let's try to
Like we are
dissect this.
Genghis Khan and we want to conquer
Let's
some
try
other
to
country.
Dissect just one by one. Let's, for instance, our clout could mean that we increase the size of our cake, the size of our slice.
Okay.
Let's suppose we are in a very good relationship with China,
Yeah.
but they get the lion's share of benefit.
Okay.
The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is a Chinese project.
What's wrong with it?
It is China that is getting maximum benefit out of it.
They're the ones
exactly.
who the main architects.
Because they
And we are not the only one. It's
because
one
their
part
power
of a ball.
this is because their power mix or the whole power spectrum is much more than what we have.
Sure.
So our ability is to use this very good project. It's a very good project. It's part of that famous One Belt One Road initiative, and it is likely to change the world order in more ways than one. But we now have to use that. We don't have to discard that or flush it away. We have to use that to increase our sinews of national power, economic, military, social.
Yeah.
So as and when our power increases,
So military,
as
economic
and when
and
our
social, I
power,
understand, right? What does CPEC got to do with our military prowess? Unless we're saying we'll earn more money, we'll buy more things.
CPEC has the ability, and Sir would shed light on it further. It has the ability to help our economy. So economic power feeds into military power.
Ali, there's only one way to help ourselves. Nobody can help you.
Of course.
I'm sure your dad can't make your career for you.
Of course.
You have to make your own magazines, you have to write your own books, you have to do everything, right? Yourself. I'm sure, Faisal, your dad didn't make you. You had to do it yourself.
Yes.
We have to make our country ourselves. We have to forget about power. There are many ways to make a country. For example, making films is a part of a country.
Exactly.
Singing songs is a part of a country.
Yes.
Dressing up is a part of a country.
Exactly.
The whole cultural thing is a part of a country. Everything is trade is a part of a country. Production is a part of a country. Everything is a part of a country. And I submit to you, provided we are a good, respectable country where everybody wants to come, airlines are coming in here by the bucket load. People want to come and see Pakistan. We want to go outside, see some. Provided we can have that kind of a thing, a foreign policy will fall into place. We are trying to build a foreign policy without having a state yet. And that is the biggest problem that I see.
Yeah. This is because we internally, we don't have internal power. We are lacking. Our focus has been always towards expanding our military power. Power has many elements, and we have to focus on each one of them.
Why do we think power? Why can't we think without power? I mean, take Singapore, for example. Singapore is a peanut of a country.
But
Take
it has
UAE.
power.
What power does it have?
It has power. It
Doesn't even have a military.
don't think of power in terms of only military or hard power. People go there in troves.
Why?
Because they have
What do they have?
It's a very good tourist place. Like, let's suppose all ASEAN countries are a tourist delight.
Singapore,
they all are. Yeah.
Singapore is very inviting because Singapore has a great booming economy.
Exactly.
Right.
So
They have
that is
innovation.
one of the
And it invites people to come and do business. there.
Absolutely.
They say, hey, Faisal,
make
if
it
you,
easy.
That is
if you
one
want
of-
to do something, come to Singapore. You
that
can
is
do
one of the levers of power.
Yeah.
Economy is one of the levers of power. So
going
this is
forward, right? Going forward, where should our foreign policy be? Now, I want to come to the book, right? I want to come to Dr. Rabia Akhtar's book, The Blind Eye. So this is a book that has been written by Dr. Rabia Akhtar, and it talks about the U.S. non-proliferation policy and vis-a-vis Pakistan. So it makes a case that from 1974 right through to 1992, right, or 1998 was it, till when we had the nuclear test.
1998.
1998. So it makes the case that, that the U.S. was aware of what was really happening in Pakistan in terms of its nuclear policy, and even though they had different kind of stricture, they had the Presler Amendment. Right, every U.S. president was supposed to every year certify that Pakistan is not nuclearizing its nuclear program. Right, so they did look the other way because there were other foreign policy considerations that the U.S. had. Afghanistan was the biggest one in that. So you've reviewed the book, right? So what do you think of it?
Yeah. First of all, this book tells us one important thing, is that there is no substitute to quality research. You have to do research. People would not take you seriously if you not do research. Your word should be research-based. Otherwise, it would be just discarded as propaganda. So propaganda that has no value, that has no effect. One thing, it took Dr. Rabia a lot of time in collating and
So how much
collecting.
time and what resources?
She went into 5 presidential libraries, from Ford to Clinton.
Okay.
Archival research based
All right.
on her visits to the libraries. And it took her about 5 years to complete her research and then write on it.
Yeah.
So a quality work cannot be done
So it
without...
wasn't just pouring over a
No,
dozen
not at all.
newspapers
No,
and 20
no.
articles.
It has, I guess, about 20% secondary sources and 80% primary sources. This is something very new.
Right.
Actually, the other thing is that it also tells us that research is about adding to the literature, not talking whatever
Somebody had already
somebody else
written
has talked about before. So that's that. The other important thing that this book highlights is that, unfortunately, Pakistanis have not written about their own country, their own nuclear weapon program.
That we've already
This
talked
is the
about.
problem.
Yeah, that is,
this is a big problem. That's
So what's the new thing that the book is saying? What's the main
The
point?
book is saying basically one thing. We have all come to the conclusion, by we I mean many of the people going around and many of the international academics, is that US is the torchbearer of nuclear non-proliferation.
Yeah.
It stems proliferation by its various tools like sanctions and
movement of
movements,
technology.
the Foreign Assistance Acts and all those things, export control laws. But now this book is a classical case of realism, where the US prioritized its foreign policy interests and it compromised those of non-proliferation. So Pakistan was very clear that it had to go nuclear because it was...
We wanted parity with India.
We wanted parity, and India, our country were dismembered, and East Pakistan became Bangladesh with heavy Indian footprint. It's a fact that
What does that
people
mean?
need to understand.
No, fair enough. Let's get to the point of the book. I'd like to know the point of the book.
So we were very clear. We did everything that we could.
Okay.
We played the Machiavellian card. We did everything. We lied. We
know.
We deceived.
That we know.
But this is what world politics is, and we did it. The
They allowed us to do that.
The Americans knew it. It happened under their nose. AQ Khan did not happen in 2004. It happened in the 80s and late 70s, and the Americans knew about it. But they turned what she calls the blind eye.
Okay.
And the major point that this book brings to the fore is that even after the Afghan war, the Americans tried to eke out certain ways to give relief to Pakistan, even after passing the Presler Amendment.
Fair enough.
The American
they
American
found a way
president.
around it. Yeah, absolutely.
But even though that the Americans had no interest after the Afghan war with Pakistan, but still they tried to, wriggle out some ways to, help Pakistan. So this was, in fact, the Americans deceived their own public, their own lawmakers. So this is one important point that this book makes. And there are two more important things. We have often talked about the fact that the US has used and abused Pakistan. Let's be very fair. We have used and abused them as well. And we should be happy. As a state actor, as a rational state actor, we did exactly what any other state should have done or would have done. So
you don't agree with Mr. Haqqani and magnificent delusions then?
No, but they're saying the same thing.
We can talk about the same thing.
You're saying the same. It's the same thing.
He is a different person altogether, and he has his different strands of thinking and point of views. So the argument...
I don't agree with him, so that's why I'm bringing it up. I know he's not here.
Yeah.
At some point in time, Hussain, we will talk about it.
So the problem is that we have always felt that the US has used Pakistan and Pakistan has got nothing in return. We have got a lot in return. We have used them, and why should we shy away from it? I think I should, when I was a bit more younger than I am right now, I used to say, oh, well, Pakistan is a country that, sees eye to eye with the US, and I was very, keen on assuming.
So what you're saying is...
I was very keen on assuming that a Pakistani leader talks to America in the sense that, hey, why I'll not allow this to happen? I'll not allow this to happen.
We know. Yeah. Going forward, give me a reason why I should read that book, what it should be, what it would give me if I read that book.
This is part of my answer to your question. So we always think that it has been a very lopsided
Fair
relationship.
enough, we understand that.
But it has not been the case. So Pakistan has
extracted its pound of flesh.
Yeah, a lot, a bit too much, much more than what it had expected.
Right.
So it wanted to,
So then Donald Trump is right.
Yeah, he is right.
He's right.
And we must not be apologetic.
Our narrative. For the first time, that Donald is right.
Our narrative of...
I don't understand the argument yet. That's why I'm waiting.
The narrative of abandonment.
No, fair enough. We accept that. Move on. Tell us. What's the point?
The narrative of abandonment must be done away with.
Right. Okay. So we've not been abandoned.
We've not been abandoned.
These were foreign policy imperatives. These are our interests.
Yeah.
Right. They've used us when they needed to. Right, exactly. And we've reciprocated, and we've used them when we wanted.
Perhaps we have used them more than they.
Perhaps we've drawn more out of it. Which happens. When you have a bigger partner, you are going to get more out of it.
And the other important thing, we have this habit of taking jibes at our strategic planners and our politicians.
Yeah, but you also took a jibe when you said they're very tactical. They're not strategic.
Yeah, I also do. But the point is that we always say that, oh, what have these journals done? What have these politicians done? What has Nawaz Sharif done? What has Zardari done? But this book is perhaps the first academic acknowledgement that as far as the nuclear weapon program was concerned, nobody compromised on it. Right from Bhutto till Nawaz Sharif. And the blind eye was not turned because the Americans wanted it to. It was turned by the deft diplomacy of people like Agha Shahi, people like Ziaullah, people like K.M. Arif. So our sons of our soils have done a Herculean job when the need arose. So it's not that we are sitting just idly and we don't do anything. In fact, the do more mantra was started by Pakistan. It was Zia who said, take away your peanuts, and I need more. And the way...
That's because Carter was a peanut farmer, wasn't it?
And the way Pakistan...
I don't like the narrative you're creating. Because the narrative you're creating fits in very well with the establishment that we have and with the way we think, right? It's this foreign policy by cleverness, by stealth, that we can do things. I think we're missing the point that the reason we got where it was because America was caught up in wars, etc., and we got advantage of various things. We got advantage of many things, like 9/11 and many things we got advantage of, and we did those things, right? Afghanistan going back and forth, Taliban, etc. And fair enough. That's history. We can talk about it. Yes, academic books should be written about it. My question is very simple. I think we pay a heavy price by trying to play a big power. There was a famous piece of analysis on foreign policy which said that if a tiger and a lion were fighting and there were mouse on the side, right? What is the best thing for the mouse to do is go hide somewhere, not get involved in the fight. And I think our foreign policy also should be there.
I was going to say that, right, in summary, that we are the mouse that occasionally roars. Right? And we do roar loud, right? We do roar with a purpose.
But often we roar to hurt ourselves. That's the problem.
That is what,
but this was a needed thing, and we did well.
There's no
we
doubt
played
about
well.
it. We do need documentation of what's gone by, right? So from that perspective,
I'm talking about the fact that we needed nuclear weapons, and we got by hook or by crook, we got shot. And we should not shy away from this fact that we did what it took to get the bomb.
Nobody's shying away from it. Nobody.
But we do.
Nobody
Our
worries about
narrative
it.
has been
We're
that
just
of
coming to the end of the
abandonment.
program, so I'm just going to summarize. So we've had Ali on, and we've talked to Ali about the whole perspective of the intersection between security, diplomacy, the power equation or the power spectrum that a nation has, and how we need to look at it holistically rather than in isolation in different factors. It's a holistic approach that we need to take. We need to be more strategic rather than tactical. We need to have probably better relations with all our neighbors. We need to recognize, where the points of contention lie, right? Reduce that friction, right? And create our own power
And my
dynamics
last
to
bit,
it.
we need to stop focusing on foreign policy.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to agree with him and say we're going to stop. No, we're going to talk more. We're going to focus more on foreign policy, but in a different way. So thank you very much for being with us today. Do let us know what your take is. I mean, he will keep saying that. I am a slightly higher paid taxi driver, right? So I do understand that what happens around me impacts me on a daily basis also. And I'm sure you do too. So do let us know what you think. Thank you very much for being with us today.